This is the nature of everything. Don't stay stuck.
So, you know what I realized this morning?
How to use your espresso machine?
Well, maybe. But no, seriously. Like, maybe I've been hitting snooze on my own life. You know, not the alarm clock. I mean, well, sometimes the alarm clock too. But like, seriously, deeper stuff.
All right, tell me about it.
All right, so like, I'm brushing my teeth and I'm doing the things. And I think about how, like, I'm checking the boxes and I'm productive or I'm looking productive. But under the surface, so often I'm coasting, kind of on autopilot. Like I'm wide awake, but somehow I'm not as present as I want to be. Do you ever feel that?
Kind of like you're just running around real fast with the clipboard, but there's actually nothing on the clipboard.
Yeah, there's nothing on the clipboard.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, like, I think every time I've realized that I'm scrolling through my breakfast, or I say good morning, but it's almost like it's scripted instead of an actual connection to the people that matter. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's like your body shows up, but your soul is still somewhere under the covers. It's warm under there.
Yeah, why get out?
Yeah, and I don't think it's burnout. I mean, I think it's something else. Something maybe quieter, but something maybe more dangerous.
Yeah, and we did mention it on Tuesday, and that it's comfort. And comfort all too often pretends to be clarity, and it just simply isn't.
And so, I mean, that's what I want to talk about today. It's not some motivational speech, and we're not throwing cold water on you. We're just saying, like, maybe it's time to actually wake up.
I like it. All right, let's do this.
Welcome to the Nature of Everything podcast with Bo and Clint, where we deep dive into the world of personal development through coin. Confirm it, own it, be intentional, and change the nature of everything.
All right, everybody, you heard it. This is the nature of everything. I'm Bo.
And I'm Clint. And if you've been listening for a while, you might notice things feel a little different today.
Yeah, and look, not a rebrand, not a breakdown, but we're going to dial things in. We want to tighten up the message, and we want to lift the weight a little higher.
So we've been doing this podcast for a little over a year now, and we've talked a lot about personal growth, confirming, owning, being intentional, grace and forgiveness, presence, and all of that is super important, and it's real. It matters to the nth degree. However, a little bit lately.
Yeah, I mean, lately it's felt a little too gentle, genteel.
Genteel, yes.
Yeah, like we've been, kind of putting bumpers on the bowling lane, but I'm ready to bowl.
Yeah, so everybody, this 4-episode series that we're going to do now, it's about recalibration for us, for you, for where we think this whole thing is actually going.
Yeah, and we're going to start with the idea of waking up, because that's the moment before the moment. It's the spark. It's the moment that you go like, wait, this isn't it. I want more. And instead of hitting that snooze button, you decide instead to move.
Yeah, so Troy, let's start here. What does it cost to stay asleep? Like we mentioned, I don't mean burnout. I mean numbness. I mean that kind of quiet detachment that, it looks functional on the outside, but you know it, you feel it, we all know it. It feels hollow.
Yeah, you get up, you go to work, you manage the house, you answer the emails, you show up to therapy even, or you read that motivational book, but something's still disconnected. It's like you're living out of a version of your life that somebody else built for you.
And it's the version of the book that you're talking about that you say you read, but you held the book and you turned the pages and your eyes went over the words, but did you do anything with it? What was this even a version that you ever wanted? Or is it a version of you that you just simply never updated?
I feel like our lives should have like the automatic updates, to our software.
Mine feels like it's constantly buffering though.
Right. But the cost of that, is subtle. It's not dramatic like some big crash or some big breakdown. It's just erosion, that slow erosion. Your energy just kind of starts to decay, and your relationships feel flatter. Your creativity dries up, and you kind of forget what lit you up in the first place.
And you know what? With that, at the time, there's nothing technically wrong. You're just not making a move, and you just kind of sit in a stale fog for no good reason.
Yeah, until one day you realize you're building a life that fits, but it just doesn't feel like it fits you anymore.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And let's be honest, wake up is a phrase that gets tossed around like some motivational hack. Like if you just drink the right green juice or if you just listen to the right guru, you're going to be suddenly fully present and enlightened and aligned.
Yeah, and it becomes cliche because for me, I'm sorry, I don't know what the right green juice is. I can't find it.
You're not nearly crunchy enough.
I'm not, and by no means are we gurus. So, but when we say wake up, we're not talking about hype, but we do mean clarity. Turning the light on in your room, and the light that I'm talking about, the one that you've been avoiding, the the really bright one that pisses you off when you wake up to it in the morning. Yeah. Because it's uncomfortable. So that's the one we're going to turn on.
Yeah, and look, here's a line that I read several years ago that really has stuck with me. It's Viktor Frankl. And he said, when we're no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That's the real wake-up call. Not trying to control everything around you, but becoming radically honest about what's going on inside you.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable because clarity, there's a cost to clarity. It demands something of you. There is a lift to having clarity. You might realize that you've been blaming your job, and realistically, it's your boundaries. Like you haven't set your own boundaries, but you want to put that off on someone else, or that, I don't know, you keep picking the same kind of relationship because it feels familiar. That's the relationship that you're used to. So you keep picking that one and it keeps failing. And it is continually unfulfilling, like surprise.
Yeah. And that uncomfortableness that you talked about and saying like that clarity, it costs you. That's that level of honesty that we need to bring to the surface because it's not feel good. It feels good at some point for sure, but It needs to feel uncomfortable. There needs to be a cost because you might realize that you've built a life that looks great on the outside. But if it doesn't connect to your actual values anymore, that sucks. And look, this is where just the conversation really gets real.
I mean, this is a cognitive dissonance. I mean, that is what you're feeling when these things happen. And like you think about that stress that we feel when our actions, like they don't match our beliefs or they don't match the standards that we want for ourselves. I mean, that is cognitive dissonance. I think that most people just turn down the volume on that dissonance and sort of accept it as, like, hey, this is just where I live now. I think that they, whether it's, expenditures or vices or whatever, they distract themselves, they numb themselves from, having to face it. They rationalize. They're living in that comfort that's staying stagnant and staying stale in that fog.
And the bold move, the awake move, it's turn that dissonance into data. Like turn it up and see what happens, but see what's there. Get curious about the tension instead of avoiding it.
Absolutely. But to your point, awake doesn't mean that you just fix it all at once, right? It's
Why not
that you...
I'm just kidding.
Right? But I mean, clarity doesn't mean fixed either.
Right.
Just because you've recognized these things doesn't mean that you've got the solution to it in place already. It just means that you stop pretending, you stop avoiding, you stop coasting, and you become aware and you start noticing these things and you put a name to it. You confirm what that is and you own what's actually going on.
I mean, we have seen this happen so many times in planning business things, around what we're doing. And just to name it and just to bring awareness to it, it really does change, kind of how you respond to it. It brings it in and it incorporates it without always having to put a lot of effort. It's subtle. You start paying attention to maybe where you check out and you realize that you're always exhausted around a certain person, or you notice that your to-do list is just full of stuff that you hate. And you know what? That's a signal. I mean, that's a signal fire, really. I mean, when you notice that you're doing a bunch of stuff that you hate, like, how does this happen to us?
I would certainly consider that a clue. If everything you're doing you hate, I mean, you're not doing it right. I think these signals or these moments of awareness that you're awakening, it doesn't always have to be dramatic. I think that there are plenty of quiet moments in our lives. If you go on a walk and something clicks because you've spent some time with yourself between your own ears and without the distractions, without the traffic, and without the emails and the phone, I think those are times when these things take place. Or just a look on your kid's face that boom, I mean, it rattles something in you, but there's no outward appearance of that. Or I don't know, you change the way you decide to speak, the way you deliver something. And that may not sound like your normal habitual you, but you know what? Those are those pieces. Those are those integral steps that start making you different.
I think I know what you're saying. Like, when some things they just kind of click, or they just kind of get your attention. And from there you can move. So I mean, like, maybe you're thinking like, well, I'm not asleep. I'm busy. I'm exhausted. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. That's fair. But let's slow it down a little and look closer. Just because you're moving, it doesn't mean you're awake.
Yeah. And just because you're exhausted doesn't mean that you're doing shit that matters. I mean, I think that a lot of times we get spun around into a bunch of stuff that actually isn't helping us at all. And that's probably what's most exhausting, because you're staying in motion, but you're not accomplishing whatever your next steps are. And the fact that you're exhausted is probably one of the clearest signs that you're still asleep.
Yeah.
I mean,
look, I agree. I feel that 100%.
Yeah. Like, how often do you feel like you just stayed in motion and then but you don't feel like you've accomplished anything? I think that is
yesterday, the day before. I mean,
right.
All the days. But like you said earlier, like you go on a walk or something, you get a little space, and that's when those things tend to click.
And I agree. I think that's when you recognize, oftentimes when things, like you'd mentioned, feels flat, or, you feel unenthusiastic. You're checking the boxes of life, but like you said earlier, which I thought was cool, was that you're checking these boxes, but these aren't even the boxes that you're choosing for yourself. These are somebody else's obligations that you're not even aware of. You just going through the motions.
Yeah, I mean, you just you say yes out of habit, but not out of alignment. Or you're just managing everything, but you're connected to no thing.
No thing, not a thing. And here's the big one, really. You don't have time to think your own thoughts.
That's too real.
Yeah, because it's not a scheduling issue. It's not a time ownership piece. It's a signal that you're not paying attention.
Yeah, and you know what? There's a study out of Harvard that showed that our minds wander 47% of the time. I mean, that's like nearly
not
half
mine.
of our
I think mine's on
hours.
No way. I think mine's on the 80%. 47. You wish my mind only wandered 47% of the time.
I mean, that's like half the time we're not even here, And it turns out that we're less happy when our minds wander, when we're, daydreaming, even if it's a good daydream.
Well, with that, being aware and being focused on what these next steps is, it's not just about high performance. So if you're thinking about keeping your mind focused, it's about being present. It's about presence, about catching yourself when you go into that mental drift, which it's funny that the 47% of the time is a percentage that's listed out of this study, because I really don't feel like 47% of the time I'm wandering. I feel like too often I may push a little beyond the 47%. So what am I missing?
You're just, out there in la la land,
Maybe.
To me, it's like you find yourself saying stuff like, it's not that bad, or, I'll deal with it after the holidays, or I don't have time for that right now. Like, if you put words to those numb, checked out, mind wandering moments, that's what those might translate into. That is that snooze button language. It's the soft avoidance. But it feels really socially acceptable because everybody says that, like, oh, I don't have time for that right now. I'll get around to it.
Yeah. And I think the vast majority of people, all of us, recognize the quote, I don't have time for that right now. Like, I think we all really recognize that for what it is. And it still comes out of our faces so easily, but it's an illusion, right? It's this illusion of control, of thinking like, hey, I am so focused and busy on the things, but it's not. It's what you said. It's autopilot. It's emotional autopilot. You're not reacting, you're not engaging because you're choosing to numb out whatever that signal is at the moment. And so I do think that we've trained ourselves so often to just emotionally survive, but not to engage. And so often I think it's I don't have time for that right now. That's not true.
That reminds me of this phrase, you can sleepwalk through a life that you never meant to live. And that's haunting, that we could find ourselves there. It hits me. I mean, nobody plans to drift for that erosion to take place. Nobody wakes up saying well, let me just numb out for 5 years. But you know what? It happens quietly. Sure. And you want to talk about incremental steps? Those incremental steps happen too.
Yeah. And and you absolutely wake up 5 years down the road looking back going, shit, that went by way too fast. And, what did I give up with that? For sure. All right. So honest check-in with that for all of us. What are you tolerating that doesn't actually serve you anymore? What part of our lives are we pretending, we think, well, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. But it's actually draining you. It's actually taking something from you. It's a cost that you shouldn't be paying.
Again, you don't need to overhaul everything tonight, but you do need to name the numbness. Call out that cruise control. That's waking up. And, we're going to say waking up. This is not the political thing. We're not like that. We're not getting into that mess, but you do wake up from this. Okay. I'm not going to apologize. We're going to keep this word. We're going to wake up from this.
For sure. And look, it's not about necessarily, I'm not saying that it can't include it, but it doesn't mean to just, quit your job, throw everything out, live some minimalistic life that you don't desire either. We're not saying just move to a yurt in Montana or something and delete, it's not about just disengaging from society. It's more than that. It's not aesthetic. It's not a performance. It's not to simply be recognized as doing these things, but there is a sensation to it. There is a realness to it. It may be some of those things, but it doesn't require all of that either.
I hope that we can keep the part about the yurt in Montana, because that sounds so romantic.
Nice.
It does, doesn't it? But look, I mean, to your point, it doesn't have to be loud, but it is visceral. It might even feel like tension at first because you've been asleep with your arm pinned under you, and suddenly you wake up and, you can't move. It might be like that. There might be some tingling. It might hurt a little, but it's alive.
It may be as simple as just saying it out loud. I don't want this anymore. This doesn't work for me. I'm changing things. And don't get me wrong. That moment, it might wreck you out for a day or so. It may put you in a really uncomfortable spot of putting that out and putting it out there out loud. But it also breaks this trance that you've been in.
I can't think of anything that would take more courage than to admit these things. I mean, we're saying it like this, but you're talking about some hard work. You're talking about that honesty. I mean, there's nothing about this that's easy. It's not like going well, I just feel numb lately. Are you kidding me? To literally sit there and say, you know what? I don't want this anymore. I've been pretending. Are you joking right now? Can you imagine a more honest and hard thing to say out loud, to name? And it's not just that. It can also be subtle. I mean, it doesn't have to be those earth-shattering moments. Maybe you just start by speaking up in the meetings a little bit more. Maybe you delete the text draft that you would have sent just to keep the peace. Maybe you choose silence over distraction for the first time in weeks or months.
Yeah, because realistically, those little things, those are the ones that you should test drive anyway. You mentioned speaking up in a meeting. Well, why wouldn't you? What's going to happen? Okay, maybe somebody doesn't like your idea, or maybe you even got it wrong. They're not going to take you out back and beat the brakes off of you because you spoke up at a meeting. Don't get run over. You can decide not to get run over. Shit, you might not even have a plan yet. You just feel yourself becoming available to your own life again, and you want to check into that, and you want to be a part of that. Here's the other side of it. Yes, those are pretty monumental when you say, I'm going to say these things out loud. But who are you looking for permission from? You don't need permission to do anything. stop rehearsing your excuses. If you're living in those excuses all the time and that's what you're inviting in, then you're maintaining your own staleness. You're keeping yourself stuck in that own spot.
Yeah, and it's a big growth metric because, like, I talked to a friend a few months ago, and he said, like, I didn't change everything, but I just changed a little bit about how I'm showing up, and everything feels different now. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the shift. That is changing the nature of everything.
Absolutely, and there can be a spike in your productivity. I'm not saying that it doesn't have those effects as well, but that's not just what it's about. That's like soul level. Like it's deep in there, and it's like the version of you that's been just kind of scared and staying behind out in the wings of the stage. You're like, nope, I'm out on that. I'm stepping into this. Like I'm coming out on stage. I'm just gonna say whatever it is I gotta say. I'm gonna live. I'm gonna be whatever it is out front.
And look, I think it's important to note, like, that's clarity, right? To make that decision. But look, Sure. It's not certainty. I mean, there's still fear. You're about to come out on stage. It can still be messy. But the difference is that there's momentum. And that's what we want. It didn't have to be perfection, just movement. And that's what we want for you, for us, for everybody. Just you have permission to move.
Absolutely. Because, and to your point, drop the ball, make a mistake, sing out of tune. It doesn't matter. That is what you should challenge yourself to do. Again, get out of the comfort zone. Move into discomfort and get that growth piece. So challenge for the week then. Pick one place in your life where you have been on autopilot, where you've been sleepwalking, where you're avoiding. Like find one spot and name it. Don't judge it. And you don't have to try to fix it. Just be aware of it. Call it what it is.
That might be a job you've outgrown, the pattern that you've been pretending is normal, the role you've been performing instead of living.
And then take a step, one step towards consciousness, one step towards awareness. It may be setting a boundary. It may be putting your thoughts in order, organizing those through a journal entry so that you have that to rely on, to reconsider. Maybe have the conversation, see where it goes. I don't know, cancel a subscription somewhere that's burning up your time and wasting your growth. Like say no to something. Say yes to something. Go do something that you haven't done. Whatever it is, find that thing, name it, and take a step towards it.
Yeah, and if you want to take this deeper, we literally wrote a book. Confirm it, own it, be intentional, and change the nature of everything in your life. This podcast, the Nature of Everything podcast, it's just a place where we talk about the ideas in the book. And we kind of work out ideas and we bring awareness to the places that we're stuck. If this episode is a spark, the book is the framework. If you're waking up and you're wondering like what to do next, that's your next move. Grab the book, read it slowly, do the work. And then when you come back and listen again, it's going to hit a little bit different because you're in motion.
Absolutely. And look, you can get it at coinyourlife.com. So go check that out. But I definitely want you to understand, like, this episode was never about calling anyone out. Us included, Bo. It's not about calling you out. It's not about calling me out.
Thank you.
Look, my mind wandered probably 30% of this time. I don't know. But it's really about calling us back to ourselves and letting that be okay and recognizing that no one else has to give us the permission for that. Calling us back to ourselves, that's a given. That's what we're allowed to do at any point. I would say the self we remember, that past self that was motivated, that was active, that was focused, that was confident and capable, like before we got tired and exhausted and quote unquote don't have time for that anymore. Before we got talked out of all of that stuff, we gave ourselves those choices and we took those opportunities. Call yourself back to that.
That's almost a spiritual statement to remember. Like, remember the you before you were tired, before you forgot that you could do whatever you want. You don't need permission.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's good.
Yeah.
So look, next week, we're going to talk about the gap, that space between where you are and where you want to be. It's just the next step in that process. We remember and then we say, well, how do we get to that? What we need to do, like when it feels like too much or not enough. I mean, we're going to talk about that space between.
And look, we're just getting started with the series. So We've got a few more episodes that's going to apply to that. So dig in. If you hadn't read the book, that's your next step. As a matter of fact, if you're looking where to start, go get the book.
I dig it.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to check out coinyourlife.com and find us on social media.